Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane Pro and HD video blog for the 19th of June, 2013. Let's take a look at Tropical Depression 2. I think you can tell just as easily as I can by looking at this satellite picture that it's rather disorganized. Let's take a look at what we don't see. We don't really see any banded, curved areas of cloud cover like this. No nice, well-formed bands feeding into any kind of a low-level center. Instead, it's kind of amorphous, or amorphic, whatever the word is, an amorphic look to it. Amorphous, I have to look that up. You get the idea. It doesn't look very healthy. It doesn't look like a tropical storm would look. But underneath these white clouds, we do have pretty heavy rain and some gusty winds. The hurricane hunters out of Keesler Air Force Base are headed into the area now, and they'll fly all through this system, sampling the environment, the low-level wind field, looking at it on radar on board their aircraft, and they might even drop one of their dropsondes down to the surface of the Bay of Campeche to see what the pressures are in the wind field, etc. The forecast track does indicate that this will become Tropical Storm Barry. All it has to do is reach 34 knots, or about 39, 40 miles per hour, and it will be upgraded to Tropical Storm Barry. And then it's going to head inland over mainland Mexico by sometime tomorrow morning, it looks like. And the main impact from this will be heavy rain, of course, with an increase in seas and winds locally in some of those heavier rain bands and thunderstorms. However, the window of opportunity is pretty small. It has plenty of warm water to work with down here, but luckily it'll move inland before it has a chance to strengthen very much. And upper level winds are really not that favorable. The low pressure center right in here, and you can see these strong winds that cut across the system like this instead of fanning out in a clockwise fashion, what we call an anticyclone over the top of it. It's got winds that are pushing across from one direction for the most part. So the upper level winds are not ideal for development. They're not completely hostile either. That's why we're seeing the attempt at some reorganization of the system. It might have a little bit of time to become a tropical storm, but it's not going to be able to strengthen very much, at least hopefully not. Remember, intensity forecasting is the weakest link in tropical cyclone forecasting as a whole. In this situation, though, the odds are against Tropical Depression 2 over here becoming very strong before it finally moves inland. The tropical wave that you see here interacting and moving through the Caribbean, the Lesser Antilles, U.S. British Virgin Islands, and then here into Puerto Rico, that's flaring up a little bit, but it too not in a very favorable environment. You see out here across the open Atlantic quite a bit of stable air, the intertropical convergence zone suppressed to the south, but it is interesting that this is trying to flare up. If we start to see this more and more in July, where these tropical waves come along kind of dormant and then they pop somewhere out here, that's going to be problematic. Why? Well, if they develop out here, they're much more likely to catch a ride on a trough and head out to sea. It's true that some of them can make it all the way over, but the later they bloom, the closer they are to the United States, as well as other interests here in the Caribbean. Just something to keep an eye on, and that's what we'll look at over the coming weeks and months. Speaking of coming weeks, the MJO forecast from the Euro, the ECMWF, thought I would take a look at this today, right now favoring the edge of the maritime continent region heading towards the western Pacific. Then the MJO should become kind of undetectable, finally re-emerging in the western hemisphere, heading towards that area that favors western Caribbean, eastern Pacific, and possible Gulf of Mexico development. It looks like, and this is valid all the way out to the 3rd of July, it looks like the first half of July could be a time when we look for development in the eastern Pacific and the Atlantic Basin, so stay tuned for that. It doesn't look like we're going to have this long period of time where there's no activity in the Atlantic, which is typical for a very busy season, which has been forecast for several months for this hurricane season. You usually get development bursts every 2 to 3 weeks when you have a very active season. So we'll see how that works. All right, to recap, we're watching Tropical Depression 2. We'll see if it gets upgraded to Barry. If so, you've got a great set of tracking tools to keep up with it with Hurricane Pro and Hurricane HD. Of course, HD for the iPad. you'll have plenty of tools to keep up with what's going on, no matter what happens with this system. All right, well, thanks for watching today's video. Again, I'm Mark Sudduth. HurricaneTrack.com is my website. Check it out sometime. I'll be back tomorrow to talk to you some more.